Oh yeah, you read that title right. Blair is fantastic for taking the Citadel down, and in crazy fast times too. But songs, how can that be possible? Blair's a fire descendant which the Citadel resists heavily. You must be cheating. Well, not only am I not cheating for these runs that you can see in the background, it's also not an abuse of any in-game bug as confirmed by another YouTuber sending in a message to the team and then confirming it's working as intended. So in today's video we'll be breaking down my Eruption Blair bossing build, ideal for taking on the Lava Citadel. I'll be explaining the skill rotation, how it all comes together, got the modules, weaponry, Arche Tuning, trigger mods and components all to come. It's about to get a little bit weird in here and I've got a fair bit to cover, so as always, if that sounds good to you, what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. So I said this would get a little bit weird, and I wasn't lying. If you just skipped and looked at the build sheet at the end of the video, you're going to think I'm mad and losing it. Mismatching reactors and missing 100% uptime of our skills, well, surely this is going to be a recipe for disaster. But in actual fact, this is the perfect way to build Blair for taking down the Abyss fight, and it'll become much more clear as the build goes on. So when it comes to tips in the fight, the main things to note which will be where to aim your skills as well as maintaining your shield to the best of your ability. Now, shield is an easy one to explain as we'll have something in the build upping our crit damage when above 50% shield, so the healthier that we are, the more DPS that we'll be putting down. Now as for aiming the skills, Citadel seems to be an awkward lumbering turtle of a boss, meaning in some cases your skills won't be dealing the correct damage if you miss with your aim. So where possible, we actually want to be aiming for the back of the turtle, his neck region, or the underside of the boss for the most reliable damage output. Now when it comes to the legs, you can kind of hit these, but these seem to be a bit awkward, with some hits counting and others just kind of like passing straight through. So it's best to actually go for that squishy center where it's possible. Now when it comes to the pylon part of the fight, we do want these down to save getting that cooldown debuff, but you'll actually want to take these down with your 3 when your trigger mod is on cooldown, so that you're saving the good DPS for the boss side of things. Now this can be a bit of a tight window, so feel free to throw in some flame zones out there or shoot them down to be able to take them, but if you're after the fastest times though, don't waste too much time on this. If it's not working, just take the L, get the debuff, and then go to town on the boss. But you're actually here for the build, so let's talk modules, and already I know that you've spotted something off with this build. So to help kind of explain the choices, let's start with the trigger mod that brings this all together. Now, Wave Eruption is one of 3 brand new trigger mods that were brought to the game with the update when it went live, which fixes a lot of things for Blair, but it can also be used on any emission type skill, like Bunny's Electro Beam. Now in the case of this, it will be helping our skill 3 Burn Taste, giving us in between 5 and 30% damage reduction when the skill is being cast, 120% increased movement speed, 100% resistance to being knocked back and cancelling the skill, but the real star here is that additional damage per stack, which is giving us up to 110% skill power per stack, up to 25 total. And while that's a nice increase in damage for Blair's skills in general, the true shine of it comes down with it adapting to the skill power elements that you rock on the build. Shout out to Alyssa for bringing this to my attention on their Bunny build, but how they discovered it works is that if you use a fire reactor and fire skill power mods, then it will default to the fire element. Now if you use toxic, then this will actually work out to be toxic as well, and in this case we'll be rocking chill due to it being the Citadel's weakness, allowing us to deal both fire and chill damage at the same time with our skill 3. And to show that's how this works, well, here's a clip of using a fire skill power and reactor versus the exact same rolls on a chill reactor with the chill skill power mod. So our module choices here need to kind of center around our skill 3 and Blair's passives, allowing us to do reliable crit damage at a very reliable rate. So kicking it off with the red mod, and here we actually want to help minimize Blair's initial setup on his crit rate. Now with our initial skill 4 offering only 3 flame zones to be set up when exploding, we'll still need to rely on our skill 1 cast to get ourselves up to the fabled 100% skill crit rate number. However, there is one red mod that makes this borderline trivial, and that's going to be Classic Chef. So by slotting this in, we now have a max flame zone count boost of 9 zones, which does provide us 54% base crit rate if we do have all 9 zones up at the same time, but more importantly, our skill 4 now leaves 5 flame zones per cast, needing minimal effort on our skill 1s for that 100%. So for the bossing like this, well, Classic Chef is going to be the way. And next up we've got the skill power. With the trigger mod in mind, we run Chill Specialist for the most chill that we can get, giving us the best way into that chill skill power. And when using it in combination with Focus on Dimension, we'll increase our skill power modifiers, while also helping us out with the skill cooldowns across the board. Now with the cooldowns though, we won't be stopping there, as with both Nimble Fingers and MP Conversion, we now get to a healthy 68.2% skill cooldown, which is all that the build needs for that sustained DPS. Now, of course, no Blair build would be complete without crit modules, and this is going to be no exception. Now, as we stack our crit rate super easily with Blair's latest kit, we won't be needing skill insight here, so we can actually rock the other 3 of skill concentration, emergency measures, and front lines, and still being able to hit that 100% crit rate. We'll also be slotting in hyper focus here, as it's real simple to trigger with this setup, but due to all of Blair's crit damage multipliers, we can actually take advantage of the huge additive boost that it does provide. And then lastly, we round the build out with the duration here, using 2 modules of skill extension and maximize duration to make our flame zones last much longer, but more importantly our burn taste, so that we can take advantage of the trigger module for the most amount of time, as the damage application only goes into cooldown once our skill runs out. So the longer that the skill is active, the more damage that we're going to be dealing. Things get a little bit kooky again here with the Reactor, as Blair hilariously becomes the first descendant to really main a chill dimension Reactor. Now in this case we'll be upping the chill skill power further that we have slotted in from our module screen, with the dimension side of things doing its normal job and bumping up Blair's damaging skills. For our sub-rolls, the tried and tested best in slot here is going to be skill crit damage, as well as additional skill versus Colossus. These two in combination with everything else that's going to be going on and in this build, bring out the best DPS, so don't settle for anything less. Swapping over to components, we'll actually be going back to normality here and running a 4-piece Slayer set for the maximum skill power into everything. The skill cost downside is easily bypassed as Blair due to his skill 2 replenishing his MP, and as we'll be using it in the skill rotation anyways for those buffs, we never have to worry about our MP bar. For the rolls on the parts, the typical HP and MP combo will give the best stats, as Blair is a skill-based descendant, and you'll probably have these rolls anyway as they're useful across the board for a number of other descendants. Same with the component cores, as HP and defense are our go-to here, and that is going to be giving Blair some decent stats to work with. Swap into the weaponry, and as we're using hyper focus in this build and we want to reliably apply a resistant shred from our Inversion Reinforcement, there really is only one choice for our boy to use. Kingsguard Lance is amazing at applying both, being a generic source of damage but also having the capabilities of applying the hyper focus skill crit damage buff to us, while also applying that stacking debuff of shred on the enemy. Now if you've ever seen my VS of Purge build videos, you'll have an idea as to how this is built, but running it into fire rate and chill will offer the best way of consistently applying a crit from the gun before your skill lands. Now, build-wise, we don't need to invest into this too much if you are looking to save your catalyst, but the main core mods here will going to be fire rate up, edging shot, and better insight, and if you still have space after that, then prioritizing magazine size and element before moving into those crit damage mods. And with that setup, you're grabbing the fastest fire rate for the lances and boosting your crit rate up as high as possible, which should then in theory help you out with landing that weapon crit more consistently. Now for your weaponry adjustments, the only key one to grab here is going to be crit rate. The rest of here are just kind of what I use for my Purge 10 runs, so if you are after a blueprint for that so you can use it across different bits of content, feel free to be able to copy mine. And then lastly for the cores, 2 fire rate cores in the free slot, 1 firearm attack, 1 chill attack, and a Legion of Darkness roll for the purple slot if you ever do use this inside of Purge level 10. Bringing it on over to the tuning, we'll be using a 2 mutant cell setup here, granting us huge crit damage boost once the criteria is met. Keynotes to grab here will be skill power purple nodes, all 3 crit damage bumps, Colossus skill attack multipliers, and then the 2 slots in the top and the bottom right. Now in these slots we'll be loading Arche Overheat Shield for the 42.8% crit damage boost when our shield is 50% or higher, and then Arche Concentration for stacking crit damage up to 37.5%, which is easily applied via our skills with burn or through our lances applying that shred consistently. With both being multiplicative, this works out to be around about an 80.3% crit damage boost, which is absolutely huge for the build. And then lastly we have our Inversion Reinforcement, which small but substantial buffs to the rotation. Now first up we have Arche Circulation Tactic for periods of max cooldown, which is going to be ideal for helping us in the fight to have both of our skill 3 and our 4 back for being able to set ourselves back up, or also being able to use that for DPS. Secondly, we have any focus rounds of your choosing, but with the Citadel being weak to chill, I'd personally suggest and recommend that you do go for the chill focus rounds for slightly more damage, while also being able to apply the enhanced focus rounds debuff to the boss for 20% resistance shred, which then does work with our skills so that we do more damage. And then lastly for our Inversion Reinforcement, we'll be going for the Deploy Resonance device, which provides us with more skill duration, which is ideal for our Flame Zone buffs, but more importantly for our burn taste, as once again, the longer that this exists and hitting the boss, the more stacks we'll be applying, and the more damage we'll be doing in the long run. It's a small boost to our duration, but it does actually work out to be quite potent in the long run. And then lastly, we just have the fellow, and you can get away with either of the sheepdog or the hunting dog. In all honesty, none really matter too much here, as we'll be keeping healthy, our ammo won't be depleting too fast as we rely on the lance's ability to do the damage for us, and MP is never an issue with Blair due to that extinguished skill. So feel free to be able to pick the one you like the look of, and just feel free to stick with it. And with all that out of the way, that wraps it up for my Citadel toppling Blair, another descendant that can recently swap between elements outside of his native one. Overall, I think I kind of like that, as it means that Blair doesn't have to compete against Serena as a fire descendant, so now he has the tools to be able to push leaderboards and never has to worry about sharing that fire type again. And so this is a section I want to hear from you. What are your current thoughts on Blair? How goes the grind with the swords and the Abyss boss? And then lastly, what are your current thoughts on Season 3 so far? Let me know all that and more down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. As I always say, keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on our next video.